Thank you so much, Pooja. Thank you, Rohan, for pulling me in to this wonderful session here this evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. Greetings and regards from the land of Lord Jagannath. I'm thankful to you, Rohan, for more than one reasons. One of them was actually I went back and did a lot of mud digging to understand how we have done what we have done in the past 11 years or so. 2011 is when I started my hospital, and we're standing in 2022 now. So uh, that's how uh, that's how it went. We'll just come to that in a minute or two. Uh, we have heard a lot of authorities in the field saying that you enslaved technology. Technology should not enslave you. They quote various persons, including Albert Einstein and his famous quote. I would beg to disagree with all of them. Technology is not something that enslaves you. It definitely does not enslave you if you use it in the proper sense, in the proper proportions that it is meant to. Nor do you attempt to enslave technology. Rather, both of these aspects, technology and human beings, should join hand in hand and work together towards the future. Believe me, if you're not entrusting technology to take care of your needs, you will not have what we all work for. And what we all work for in the field of private practice, at least, if we do not have a brand equity and we're trying to build it, is this. We want to have the tag of premiumhood in our centers. All of us want that. All of us desire that. And the only way you can have it is perhaps to work hand in hand or hand in glove with technology and not trying to enslave or be enslaved by it. Right. So every human being undergoes three essential stages in life: the crawl stage, the walk stage, and then the run stage. We call them the developmental milestones, motor developmental milestones. A professional also undergoes all these three stages, wherein he himself should chart when the crawl stage should transform into the walk stage, and the walk stage should then transform to the run stage. In a professional's life, these are not developmental milestones. We would call them wishful milestones. And these wishful milestones would give you a roadmap as to how should you go about adopting, installing, and owning technology. I charted my roadmap, and this is how it had been. 2011, as I told you, is when I started my hospital with a basic slit lamp and a basic refraction setup and a basic ultrasound parameter, a very, very basic microscope indeed. And then from 2012 onwards, this has been the journey. In 2012, the first equipment came to me, which was OcuScan, cut above the rest of the ultrasonic parameters at that stage before it went out of production. In 2013, I got the Infinity phaco machine with me. The phaco machine before that was very basic. In 2014, I got the video slit lamp because I wanted to document my patients, take a few pictures or videos, and then I wanted to graduate to the optical biometry and got the Oil Master 500 after a lot of debacle with different machines in the market. In 2015, the Lumira Eye microscope replaced the basic microscope which was there earlier on, the step magnification microscope. So the Lumira Eye came in. In 2016, the Oil Master 700 replaced the Oil Master 500. We also got the Aberometry eye trace installed in my setup. In 2017, the next set of equipments, which was a Signature Pro phaco machine, which is a cut just a segment above Infinity, and also wanted to have a premium phaco machine as a standby, and the specular microscope to look at the elderly patients who might have had a corneal weakness. In 2018, there was a host of equipments. The Centurion came in, the image guided system called Varian came in, spectral OCT to scan the retina in a few patients came in because it is legally important to have this in your setup. And the phoropter, all the refractions from then on have been carried out automatically with a land-based phoropter system. In 2019, we got the femtolaser platform, Lens 6, in our hospital. In 2020, which was COVID hit, we got the Heidelberg anterior, the comprehensive anterior segment viewing machine from Heidelberg. In 2021, we got the dry eye suite, which was important for a few patients when we started learning that we are burning our fingers in a few patients, in a few ATIL patients, in a few premium patients, when we are not looking at the surface of the eye. And a few days back, or a few weeks back in 2022, we have the Luxor Revalia premium microscope now installed, and which will replace the Lumira Eye as the primary microscope in my setup. So this was my roadmap. You can have yours. You're always free to choose your own roadmap, build your own roadmap. But the important thing here is you must have a dream to live it. So how do you live your dream? How do you make you financially capable so that you can have one new technology established in your center virtually every calendar year. So the first thing I would like to advise you is to stop accepting anything in cash. This increase the cash flow means increase the flow of cash into the books of accounts. This is the accounting language. So increase the cash flow and fatten your books of accounts. If your gross income does not show X value, you cannot officially show that you're buying this equipment of Y value. The Y has to be a fraction of X. If X does not fatten, then Y will be very, very limited. You'll have limited choices. In today's world, if anything is built to you, it'll be in white. So there's no point in building the number two in your at your house because you would not be able to spend it properly. The other thing that is important is after you set your roadmap properly, the other thing that is important for you to understand is if you have created a bulk in the volume of finances, if you have built a pool, you must back invest a fraction of that pool to where it came from. So your hospital, your center is the one that generates the bulk for you, generates the pull for you. A fraction of that pool should go back to the place which has generated it. That should happen at a regular basis. It doesn't have to be in terms of equipments. It can be as simple as coloring your walls, affixing wallpapers, changing the tiles, getting the sterilization equipments, buying a new property. If you have the dream of building your own building, getting a property somewhere, that could also be one of the things incorporated in the roadmap. Calculate your profit percentage every year and the rate of growth. So in the commercial industry, if you're showing a growth of in terms of profit, if you're showing a growth of 20%, that is not adjusted according to, I mean, if you have raised your price somewhere in between the calendar year, the rate of growth is close to 20%, you're doing very well. And there's no reason why you should not back invest into your own setup if your rate of growth is showing 20% every calendar year for maybe consecutive 2 years or so. Compute the possible depreciation amount after you have negotiated with the manufacturer regarding the equipment that you want to buy. Do calculate the depreciation. Now, what is depreciation? If you have, say, an equipment is costing 1 lakh, 15% of that, which is 15,000, will be deducted from your taxable income. So you're saving on tax. After your negotiation, you should look at the depreciation value of that equipment. And depreciation is not calculated with the amount you're paying to the company to buy it. For example, if the cost of the equipment is 1 lakh, but you're paying 10,000 rupees upfront, depreciation is not calculated on 10,000 rupees. Depreciation is calculated on 1 lakh. And every year, 15% of that is calculated, and you do get tax benefits till the value becomes zero. So I'll show you an Excel sheet in a while from now. Then finally, you must build a corpus which gives you return or growth. If you put in the money in the bank, it goes stale. So if you put the money that in your corpus fund, if you put the money in some kind of an SIP or some other investment, it will give you a rich return. The market is volatile, understood, but your finance advisor is going to take care of that. Trust me. So how do I do that? My finance team has three people. One of them is obviously the accountant of the hospital. The other is the finance advisor. Since we are building a corpus, the financial advisor is somebody who is actually a market expert. He looks at the market values. He looks at the Sensex values. He looks at the different fund performances. He looks at the SIP. He looks at the hot area where we should be putting in money right now. And he also does advise us regarding the appropriate time to put them. If the market is low, if you have long-term plans, put in money so that the market rises and you get bonus units so that it fattens the capital amount that is there. Both of them report to the final finance authority, which is the chartered accountant in my case. So he prepares the balance sheet, and then it is prepared once every quarter. So we prepare 4 balance sheets in a year. These three guys meet fortnightly, and along with me, we meet once every month. So this is the Excel sheet that we're talking about. This started building from 2015 because 2015 is when my hospital was converted into a private limited company. Before that, it was an ownership firm, a proprietorship firm. So this is the growth percentage that we achieve every year. And look at 2019-20, for example. This is the asset that we have added on in 2019-20, amounting to 2 crores 68 lakhs 82,000 rupees, out of which we get the depreciation worth 53 lakhs in the first year. And the tax that is saved is in the process is 15 lakhs 92,000. So almost 16 lakhs of tax we have saved just by buying an equipment. And this is just the first year. You are going to get it in the subsequent years as well. The amount that we paid for this particular asset addition in 2019-20 was 50 lakhs. So we paid 50 lakhs, out of which we are already gaining or saving on 16 lakhs. So people do not calculate that normally. You do calculate that because that is going to show you that you're actually not spending much as far as installing the equipment is concerned. What should worry you though is the CMC of every equipment. But the CMC of every equipment again is very, very negotiable, and it can be adjusted with various things. Maybe 100 rupees enhancement in your surgical packages is going to cover for all the CMCs that you have in all the equipment. So as you add on to the technology, you should also add on a nominal fees to your surgical packages. It doesn't hurt the patients if you add 500 or 1000 rupees to your surgical packages. It doesn't hurt them. They are happy, and you also be happy in serving them, and you retrieve the cost without charging anything specifically for this expensive investigation modalities. There's certain other snippets that I would like to talk to you about. Limit the number of manufacturers. If you negotiate with one company, if it has majority of the equipments in its armamentarium, and you limit the number of manufacturers, it's easier for you. And I would advise you to stick to the manufacturer which also has a good presence in the field of consumables in terms of IOLs and other consumables, because consumables is what builds the business volume for them as well. So if you give them good volume of support in terms of consumables, they would be ready to come down on the pricing and the deferred payment structures, spread it over a period of 48 to 60 months for every equipment that they place at your setup. Look at core competence. I'll cite an example here. There are two companies who are excellent in the viewing system. One is Topcon, the other one is Zeiss. But in my experience, when it comes to a split lamp, I've always found the Topcon to be performing better. But when it comes to the microscope, I've always found we all have found Zeiss to be performing better until recently, of course, Zeiss to be performing better. So look at the core competence of every equipment. Talk to your colleagues, the seniors, before you buy them. Pre-decide on one equipment. You know what you're going to buy, but play around with the rest of the players in the market. So that will give you that negotiable, that margin for negotiation. So negotiate with them with very hard. You hire a harsh negotiator, who might just work with you as one of the administrative officers in your hospital. The one that works for me is somewhat of a kind of an administrative officer at my hospital, and believe me, he is a matriculate. He has never visited a college, but when it comes to the negotiation part, he is extremely tough nut to crack. Let the vendors know that you just sign the check. You don't take decisions. While as you do take the decisions, you are the one who is talking to the colleagues. You do have your say in that. But the vendor should know that you just sign the check. You do not decide on anything. So time and again, they are actually directed to the harsh negotiator, because the companies will try to get to you because you're the one who's got the most amount of mannerisms as per them, but you direct them back to the harsh negotiator time and again. Trust a deferred and fractionated payment more than a bank loan, because bank loan always has interest amounts added on, and you do not get any tax benefits in the interest amount. So the deferred payment, which only adjusts the capital that the company is going to take from you, is what you should be looking at. And if they have consumables with them, it also helps. And I would definitely advise all the young Turks here not to trust the non-banking finance companies, because non-banking finance companies always have a lot of hidden agenda. One of them is when you pay the EMI back to them, it is GST chargeable. They don't tell you that. So it is GST chargeable. They would tell you the EMI amount. When you pay them, say it's 1 lakh, you have to deposit GST, and they would refund it back to you. They would never adjust it from their future EMIs. So after you're through with your payments, they would do it every quarterly. And believe me, once you're through with payments of all your EMIs, for the last 2 or 3 segments, they really play you around with. They just don't respond to your calls and messages and mails. So NBFCs, I don't trust them. Before wrapping it up, I would just like to give you one example of how technology helps you. So this was one patient of mine who was a high myopic and was using glasses all along his life. The glasses had very high spherical power. The glasses also had very high cylindrical power. And the cylindrical power that came actually surprised us, because when the patient came to us, he had cataract, a young patient. And when we calculated the IL power, this is the variant image guided system, and it recommended us an IL power of 3 diopters, and it suggested that the patient needs a T2, but he was using huge cylinder. So this patient was suggested a T2. We got intrigued. Why this huge cylinder in the glasses when the corneal cylinder is not very high? So we subjected the patient to an anterior segment OCT, and we found that there is not exactly a posterior lenticonus, but the cortex is a little conical shaped here. So probably there was a posterior lenticulus associated with that, and that's the reason why there was a lenticular astigmatism along with that. We subjected this patient to eye trace. We saw that the tracy refraction, which is essentially calculated on the anterior lens capsule, showed a huge value of minus 5.5 instead of 1, which the patient needed at the corneal front. What is also important here is if you go up from according to the pupillary size from 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters to 4 millimeters, progressively the cylindrical value reduces from minus 6.49 to minus 4.44, minus 5.44. So when you expand the pupil, the conical shape is inducing maximum amount of cylinder right at the center. And when you go wider in the pupillary size, the cylindrical value just go down. And it obviously has a lot of higher order aberrations induced on the internal side, making this, the corneal plane is doing pretty well. So luckily this patient opted for femto LASIK because as you saw, the IL calculated power, IL power was 3 diopters and torics are not available in that power range. So we adjusted the cylinders that the patient required with a paired arcuate incision. So that is what is being carried out in this patient's eye. So this patient's cylinder was neutralized as well as the sphere. This was the second eye. The first eye was operated in one of the premier institutes of India. So that eye was also doing well. The patient has a 6/6 both eyes, but you can see the phoropter screen to know the difference. The left eye, which was operated with this combination of technologies, doesn't have any refraction, but the right eye, which also has a 6/6, has a 1.5 cylinder left over in terms of refraction. So it's anybody's guess as regards to with which eye the patient would be happier. So this comes the final picture. So gone are those days when we used to say that you under promise and over deliver. This is an era wherein the promise should actually match the expectations. So what you do is you make the left hand side arrow undergo in cyclotorsion and the right hand side arrow undergo X cyclotorsion, and then you make both the arrows move towards each other, wherein technology comes in to help you, and they fuse to make a huge subset which would build your brand value and take it to new heights. Thank you so much, Rohan and team, for the opportunity. And the audience, the patient audience as well. Thank you so much.
Anurag has given a brilliant pathway. I think couldn't make it better. As he said, he's really taken a lot of efforts to prepare this presentation. This is not from he's done it from a perspective of the management and from the doctor's perspective. Thank Anurag. A lot of pain.
Couple of things that I actually picked up, sir, in your presentation that I wanted to ask. So you had an IOL Master 700 in 2015, and you again went for an Anterion in 2020. Any particular reason for doing that? Because IOL Master 700 is the so-called benchmark as far as optical biometers are concerned. So what was the need of getting an additional Anterion?
Yeah. It is definitely a benchmark when you consider optical biometry and optical biometry to be the sole measuring rod, Rohan. But there are so many things that Anterion does which the IL Master 700 cannot do. A, it calculates the keratometry based on OCT technology, and it takes 28,000 points in calculating a very precise keratometry. B, it measures the posterior surface for you, which even a TK does not do. It's a Paki-based posterior torus fit, but Anterion does calculate that. It's a tomographer. It has a 1300 nanometer wavelength of light instead of the 1050 that the 700 uses. So its penetration is higher. It gives you a continuous A scan. So there are various things that are incorporated in the Anterion. We have found that in the most whites of cataracts, where the 700 at times fails to take a reading, the Anterion has given us very accurate readings. There are almost a host of things which probably would be beyond the scope of this particular session. So in the interest of time, we should not go beyond that. But the Anterion is a very wholesome machine. The only thing that limits its widespread installation is its cost. But if you take the wholesome, they have different modules, but if you take the complete loaded version, then it's a little more expensive than an optical biometry should be available at. But it's a fantastic machine to work with, trust me.
Yeah. The other thing was that you said that you converted your sole proprietorship into a private limited. So just for the benefit of every youngster, what are the advantages that you will get if you convert it into a private limited? Sir?
If your earnings are beyond 1 CR, then you are actually levied a surcharge in the income tax. So if you split your earnings, if you are a proprietorship farm, then the whole thing gets pulled into your account. But if you have a private limited company, then the tax benefits are there. So you are already in the 30% slab, and then they charge you 15% surcharge if your income's more than that. Sorry for opening up so much, But this is the reason why. So now after the recent government has assumed office, they have built a beautiful system to promote the smaller companies. So they have a 25% flat. It was 15%. It was 25% earlier. I think that now they've reduced to 15%. So the 15% tax slab, there is no standard deduction, but it is 15% for the whole income that's for the private limited companies. And the other thing is, once you cross a particular proportion in your practice and you assume a higher volume and a higher status in the society, a private limited company is actually something that gives you that extra bit of status recognition. So the brand equity just grows a little more. So one who does have a particular volume of work should actually have his or her organization converted to a private limited company, is what I feel.
So I have a question for Dr. Nishant because he does a lot of refractive surgery as well. So, sir, budgeting new technology into refractive surgery. Now, refractive surgery is a totally different ball game when it comes to the input of money that's required in stepping up your technology. So, what would you say that there are actually some people in refractive surgery per se, as youngsters, as we also see, who come in with a particular mind that we want this particular platform? That's not really the case in a cataract surgery. They just want a cataract surgery mostly. But youngsters, the Google generation, they come in that I want a particular platform. So, you have one particular thing. It's very difficult for a single person, if you're not in an institute, to have multiple refractive platforms in your setup. So then how do you deal with such a situation?
So exactly like how Dr. Anurag had told, I would like to just add by saying that before you select your refractive machine, so make sure that you have done your research properly. To be frank, before I bought my machine, I went to Dr. Rohit Shetty, who's actually got all the 5 refractive platforms available in the world. I spent 2 days with him on what each machine can do. So I did such a research in terms of what each machine is good. Every LASIK machine is good, but there are some advantages of one over the other. So then I finalized and came to the Schwinn platform, which gave me an overall help. But it doesn't. I'm not having any financial support here. But I'm just saying that in terms of what you want in your place, and there were not many people who are having the Schwinn in Chennai. So that is also one thing. So when I bring a Schwinn into the market, I can say that the first of its kind in Chennai, even though it is as equivalent to an Alcon. Yes, AMO is good. Everything is good. But what people don't have here, what is something new which you can bring, is what I will say when you are planning to buy a new refractive machine.
Yeah. So, Dr. Aditya, sir, your experience as a pediatric ophthalmologist, I'm sure that you being in Delhi and as a pediatric ophthalmologist, you get a lot of anxious parents who are, of course, they dig in even deeper on the internet to find out about technology. So, how do you deal with that, sir?
So, luckily, pediatric ophthalmology, it's all about gray hair. So, I'm waiting for that. And I've got a few, so I show that off. Technology, so much, not so much, but I want to add about a couple of more things to Dr. Anurag's point of view. One is I always follow this 50% rule that I have, that if you can buy a technology twice over, go ahead and buy it without thinking. But don't limit yourself, or like he said, a lot of times you feel you're a slave to technology. It's those people who actually, looking at his balance sheet, clearly that wasn't his case, but a lot of people do feel the pressure of having a technology if it doesn't perform for them. So that happens if you can't really afford the technology, can't buy it twice. That's my funda to that. And the second is when you're in a bigger practice, group practice, where you have retina surgeons, you have glaucoma surgeons, new things are happening in glaucoma, in retina. What do you want to buy that year? That meeting is also essential along with the market research. So yeah, technology does drive your practice to an extent, and pediatric ophthalmology, luckily, the maximum we buy is prisms and toys.